So let me look at each principle first and kind of describe how you consider those when you're making the design. The first principle is this idea of knowledge. And again, none of these principles, there's not like a right or wrong mix in this. It's what's the best mix to do what you're trying to do. So let's say, for example, you go to a conference. You go to a conference, you're going to expect a whole lot of knowledge, a lot of speakers, probably just a little bit of understanding, maybe your discussion with the person next to you, and you're probably not going to make a lot of decisions based on what you heard. You know, if you showed up at a conference and the speaker got up and said, well, instead of having speakers, we've decided talk among yourselves, you'd be really disappointed because you didn't want to learn from one another. You came to hear these speakers. So the model of how much knowledge is presented in a conference is going to be something like this. A lot of knowledge, very little understanding, almost no decision action. If we jump all the way to the other end of that spectrum, you get like a weekly staff meeting. In a weekly staff meeting, you're making in-the-moment decisions. You're coordinating things. You're figuring out what's going to be happening on that day or in that week. So there's probably a lot of tactical decisions you need to make. You have a little bit of understanding to do that, but not a lot of new knowledge. Usually, if you ended up with somebody taking a long presentation during a staff meeting, it'd also be a little irritating because you would think, we've got stuff to do. We've got things we need to get on. So again, the mix is what's appropriate. In an RBC session, in a collaborative facilitated session, we think the right balance is really about 20% knowledge, about 70% understanding, and maybe only about 10% decision action. The key takeaway from this is in an RBC session, understanding is the most important thing. That it's the most overlooked thing in a lot of meetings. A town hall, for example, where a leader stands in front of his organization and tells them something and maybe does some Q&A. It's all broadcast communication. People don't really have the time to understand what's being said so they know what to do with it. In an RBC session, we usually present some amount of knowledge to begin with to make sure everybody's level set on what they're doing. Then it's an iterative number of exercises to process through that knowledge so that you get full understanding. The more you understand, the simpler, more obvious the decisions become at the end.